What is up, guys? It is your boy Brandon Groce, self-taught designer, and today we're going to be talking about why prep work is vital to the UI UX process and to your work to avoid getting creative block. So first off, why we're talking about doing prep work in your process is because we want to avoid things like creative block when we're in a design situation. So for example, I've been in a couple situations, or I'm sure you have as well, been in a situation where you're designing something at a high fidelity state and you're kind of in a situation where you're like, I really don't know what goes here. Where you're kind of thinking about very fundamental things that shouldn't be thought about in the design, high fidelity design stage. These things such as what the use cases are, what requirements are required on that page, etc. are supposed to be thought of way before the UI stage. Basically, what are the requirements, the use cases, and what the use cases are, etc. So it's this type of thinking that should be happening earlier on in the game, so that when we get to the high fidelity UI designing, all we're worried about is actually designing what we've laid out in the beginning, in our foundation, in our writing. So whether that be the use cases, the requirements, and just good design thinking of what we need in all the task flows of that page. What does that page need to fulfill? So this is what we call prep work. This is the stuff that is not design. This is not the pretty stuff. This is bullet points on paper and just good thinking and understanding what that page that we're supposed to be designing needs to solve. What problem does that need to solve? So starting at problem level and then getting into the how we're going to solve it, and then getting into what does that solve look like. But we don't want to be stuck on how do we solve the problem in, architect phase. That's like, an architect building a building and, they've already laid down the foundation. They're like, how's something gonna shit? There's no bathroom in here. Like, things like that. These are things to worry about in blueprint phase, on pencil and paper. What does the solve need to be? So if we get this creative block, if we're already far down the road and we've already started designing these things, and we're starting to think like, oh, did we forget about this, blah, blah, blah. What else is needed? We need to stop what we're doing in the design phase, and we need to back it up back to pencil and paper. Get a piece of paper, get a pencil, and write down what are the requirements of this page, what are the use cases of this page, what are the task flows of this page, and what is this page trying to solve? And then in bullet points, simply write down what this page needs so that you have a guideline when you go back to designing that you can follow from that blueprint or those guidelines or whatever you've written down, so that the thinking has been done. All you now have to do is create those things design-wise, and you can just worry about design. You're not crossing wires in terms of thinking and creativity. You never want to cross those lines as a designer. The brain has a hard time fluctuating between processing and creativity, or just thinking and creativity. There's studies out there that show that it's very hard to do. So let's make it efficient for not only ourselves, but let us make the work easier for ourselves. Build the foundation, prep our work beforehand, and then when we're ready to design, we can just focus on designing. So focus up front on the requirements, the use cases, the requirements, get all that out of the way, blueprint it out, and then let's get into design. And that will help you avoid the writer's or the creative block of design. So if you set yourself up with prep work correctly, simple tip, if you prep your work, you'll work more efficiently. You'll start off your process with just, this is what needs to be done on paper. And then once you have all that fleshed out, you can then move into, okay, now that I know everything that needs to be done, I've thought it through, I've done good thinking, then I can go and design everything out and base your design off the thinking. So very simple. Prep your work to avoid creative block and to have better work. So with that, guys, drop in the comments what you think about this process. Do you have any comments? Do you have any questions? Let me know. So other than that, guys, Brandon Groce, self-taught designer, out.